Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy, where this week we are talking Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Now, I know that's what you might be thinking. What about the Road Warrior, number 2? I have it set up and I have it ready to go and I plan on watching it sometime soon. But I thought it would be funnier to just kind of do the most recent one without the context of Fury Road or any of the other Mel Gibson Mad Max films. So, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're having a bit of a laugh here with the idea of just kind of skipping everything and going to a prequel for the more apocalyptic films. So, yeah. I also liked the idea of, we get to see how it was when it first started, how it is right now, and then we'll work our way up and continue to see the evolution of the series as it goes. At least that's kind of the idea. Now, I did run into some issues because of the fact that this is the most recent film, and it is a prequel about a character from a film I have not seen yet. So, other than that, it works out pretty good. It's a very fun film, and I had a pretty good time watching it. I had to split it up into 2 sessions because I started watching it kind of late at night, and by the time I was halfway through the film, I was like, well, shit, there's still like an hour and a bit of the film left. I'm just going to go to bed. So I did. Next day, today, I got up, sat down, watched the rest of the film, had a pretty good time, and then here we are. Recording it. Yeah, my history overall is minimal because the only Mad Max film that I have watched from beginning to end is the very first Mad Max. My context otherwise is relatively nothing. Like, I've seen clips and bits and pieces of the other films, but I haven't properly sat down and watched them. That's kind of what my little journey throughout the Mad Max films is for. And yes, the next Mad Max film I will watch will be Road Warrior, so it'll be fine. I also did think about watching this when it came to theaters, but I was kind of the only person who wanted to see it, and also, I at the time felt like I was like, I hadn't seen Fury Road or anything, but then as I was sitting there and it came to Max, I realized, wait a second, it's a prequel. Like, it's not going to exactly reference the other Mad Max films because it's a prequel. So it should be fine. But yes. Anywho, with that kind of said, I guess we can kind of start diving into the film. So this film, its placement in the timeline is a bit confusing because it's hard to tell just when it's supposed to be. Especially overall with the timeline of Mad Max. Because in the very first film, we're following Max as while it's not a post-apocalyptic world, it is a world in decline. And he's a cop doing cop things. But then in the second film, the apocalypse has happened. So there's a lot of wars and stuff that are starting to happen around this situation. Now, I don't know where Furiosa is supposed to fall. It's supposed to be about 15 years before Fury Road. Now, whether or not that is after Thunderdome or before Thunderdome is a question. Heck, whether or not it's supposed to be around the same time as, the original Mad Max is also in question. Supposedly it's not, based off of some of the research I did, but again, it's a weird question of the timeline of this film, because in Fury Road, they look to be around a similar age, so you would think that her being a kid in this film would imply that, it would be around the time that Max was kind of a kid. But, yeah, again, the timeline's a bit fuzzy, but we'll ignore that for the time being. But the movie opens with a weird, like, zoom in on Australia. There's some voiceover about, like, the wars and issues that are happening and the collapse of humanity. And it zooms in on Australia, specifically a place that, at least in the credits, is called the Green Place. And it is a place of abundance. And we see Furiosa climbing a tree to get a peach. Her and her sister are away from their village for some reason, probably just to get the peach and whatnot. And from the tree, Furiosa notices some ragamuffins slaughtering a horse at the edge of the woods. So she goes to sabotage their vehicles. So she's going and cutting their fuel lines, but she gets caught. And as she's trying to escape, she gets pulled down and taken out of the woods. Her sister runs back to the village and says they've taken Furiosa. Oh, no, she doesn't run back to the village. Furiosa blows a whistle that notifies them that something's going wrong. They come out, and as they're going by, her sister tells them that Furiosa's been kidnapped. So her mom takes a horse, and they ride out, and then she switches to a damaged bike that putters along. Then she upgrades a fallen bike because she snipes while motorbiking. But yeah, so she repairs the better bike, takes it, and eventually kind of works her way over to cutting off the people, but they make it back to camp. She's able to kill off all of them save for one, who makes it back to the camp, and Furiosa is able to keep him quiet by pretty much slicing his throat with a thing as he's trying to go along, taking her to Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth. And Dementus keeps Furiosa off to the side, trying to get her to talk, because she was able to get the guy to be killed and whatnot. And then she is saved by her mom, who breaks in to cut off loose ends and whatnot and reclaim the Peach Core. And they make their escape, but because of a lucky sniper shot that blew up one of their gas tanks on the bike, the mom is now bleeding and they're being tracked. So the mom stays behind and tells Furiosa to make her way back home. Furiosa does not listen and goes back to find her mom strung up and being tortured for the information of where this place of plenty is. And the mother dies, watching as Furiosa watches, and Dementus then takes the daughter. Dementus then takes Furiosa and kind of incorporates her into his crew, sort of. Mostly uses her as, like, basically he forms a bit of an attachment to her and has her kind of held in a cage with the storyteller. And she, with the storyteller, begins to tattoo her arm so that she knows how to get back home. But otherwise, yeah, she just kind of hangs about. Meanwhile, whilst going around with Dementus's crew, she is kind of forced to watch how he incorporates new people into the crew. He chased down this band of people who he was willing to let them all in, but because they ran from him, he is now forcing them to kill their leader, and they have to fight to the death in order to find out who gets the opportunity to kill their leader. But after that, they come across a war boy. This war boy asks if he has reached Valhalla. He has an arrow or some kind of rod in his head, and he asks, "Is this Valhalla?" And they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but we're looking for a place of abundance." And he's like, "I don't know what you mean." And after they are able to get it through to him what they mean, he's like, "Oh, you mean like the Citadel? That's where I come from. There's green stuff, and there's plenty of water and food and whatnot." And they're like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." So they use him and have him take them to the Citadel, which isn't the green place that Furiosa comes from. It's from, I believe, Fury Road. But yeah, so they go there, and Dementus and his really, really large band of bikers they threaten the Citadel and say, hey, if you don't, surrender, we'll kill you all, essentially. And he tries to bring the people up to revolt against the people of the Citadel, but it doesn't work. And they demonstrate that the War Boys, no matter which one they had chosen, because they say, hey, choose one of our champions, one of them. And they pick one, and he snorts, I'm guessing, some kind of drug or spray paint, and takes 2 spears and dives and blows up a large section of the bikers. And they say, yeah, any one of them would have done the same, no matter which one you had chosen. And so, fuck off. And then there's an all-out kind of attack with like hooks pulling bikes up and whatnot. Furiosa almost gets taken by these like people who grow maggots on corpses and whatnot. But she's saved by Dementus, and they are able to get out. And so they decide to switch plans up a little bit. And this is where Dementus's attachment to Furiosa kind of grows a little bit, but not like a whole lot, because he kind of sees her as a surrogate daughter in a way, because he lost his kids and whatnot, and his family was taken away from him, and that's part of his motivation for revenge. Against who, I don't know, but it's his motivation for revenge. But yeah, so she is just kind of there as Dementus executes his plan. His plan is to take over one of the fortresses of the wasteland, specifically Gastown, where a lot of the gasoline, or as they call it, guzzling, is produced. And it is controlled by Immortan Joe, who is the person who runs the Citadel. And they go and start setting up things, and they just kind of watch as the warband goes in and then comes out, and then they ambush the warband, kill everyone, take the truck. Then Dementus comes up with a plan to take over Gastown. And he does this by having one of his subordinates select like 10 of his baldest bikers, slather them up and turn them into war boys, so that they could pretend that the truck had to turn around and flee back to Gastown because it was under attack. But as they're on their way, the people of Gastown aren't buying it because something feels off. So Dementus decides to make it real, start actually attacking the truck and killing the fake war boys in order to, get into Gastown. His subordinate is very upset at this idea, but they are able to get into Gastown and take it over. They take the leader of Gastown hostage and go back to the Citadel, where they start negotiations. They end up kind of accidentally killing the leader of Gastown, but they are able to come to some kind of accord with Immortan Joe, who doesn't meet their specific requests, but does increase, the food and whatnot as long as the fuel comes and everything, and he gives up Furiosa, who he sees as a prospective potential one of Immortan Joe's wives, or their wives. It's not exactly made clear. It might be more clear in Fury Road, the situation, but yeah. So they come to a deal that Immortan Joe gets Furiosa and the organic mechanic, while they then also get a slight increase in food and whatnot for Gastown. And so things are relatively calm. Furiosa now is kind of lives with the wives and whatnot, but one of Immortan Joe's sons, I think his name is Pubis? No, Scrotus. I believe his name is Scrotus. Or it's either Scrotus or Rectus. But he's being a bit creepy towards Furiosa. And in the night, after she shaves her head, makes a wig, and whatnot, she is then taken by him. He snips her chastity belt, and as he's getting weird with her hair, she slips away because she had turned it into a wig, and she runs away. Now, this is where the biggest kind of plot hole for me kind of comes in, because one, there's no fuss thrown about the fact that she just disappears. Like, in the eyes of the people of the Citadel, she disappeared. And potentially Scrotus or Rectus, whatever his name is, he, I'm guessing, assumes that she just jumped off the edge and died, maybe? It's again, very unclear about, like, what they think happened to her. Because, again, no questions are really raised as to her whereabouts. She actually does end up staying in the Citadel and disguises herself as a boy and just kind of stays hidden. And she, being small, is sent out to recapture a thing that's on one of their hooks that is about to fall, and she's able to recapture it. But she's sent to recapture it and get promoted to, like, this... I can't remember what the term was, but she's pretty much like a rigger / mechanic person now. And she helps assist in building Immortan Joe's war rig and whatnot. But she's starting to plan an escape. She sets up a plan to stow away on the war rig. She mounts up a bike, fuel, and food. And she plans on, at, I guess, some point along the way, just kind of slipping off and slipping away. But on their way through, they get attacked by Dementus's a subordinate who broke off after the incident which got them Gastown. And so in the attack, she is able to help fend off things and help repair the truck, because her plan pretty much gets pulled away in the attack, so she kind of has to shift. And she tries to get the trucker guy. I don't think I got his name. I don't know his name. But she tries to get him to pull over and get out of the truck, and then she was going to take the truck and try to go home. But he's like, yeah, no, fuck that. Kicks her out of the truck, leaves, and then she starts kind of wandering around, but he comes back and says, hey, look, I don't know what your plan was, but I'm going to need some help, and I would like your help because you fight really well. There is a pseudo-romance between these two, though it's not, like, super prominent in the film, though it does end up becoming some major motivation for her down the line. But, yeah, she joins on and becomes I guess his term is as a road warrior, pretty much helping him drive the truck and get it around. They end up kind of planning an escape together, in a way, because he gets her a gun and bullets and whatnot. He's like, this is for your trip. I'm going to help you kind of amass some things, and then you can leave. You know, get you some wheels, get you gas, food, everything, and then you can go. It's just going to take a couple days. But while this is going on, some turmoil is starting to kind of bubble under the surface. Hinted at initially at the bullet farm, where they say, hey, you know, shit's going weird at Gastown. We need to call a war meeting because, like, the things going on with Dementus is stupid. So we have to sort this out. Then, on a trip to Gastown, they go, and Gastown is in a state of unrest. Dementus is able to get them out, but without them getting the fuel that they need. So they start to plan a war thing. What they plan on doing is having them load up They plan on them having the war rig sent out empty and brought back full of weapons and ammunition. Completely. But when they get to the bullet farm, it's deserted. It's a trap. And this is also when, presumably, her and the road warrior guy are planning to make their escape. Because there's like this weird thing where she's now in a chaser car that has 2 bikes and food and water and whatnot loaded up in it. But otherwise, it's just her driving it. But they get in, it's a trap. She's able to get outside of the gate, and instead of just fleeing, goes back and helps to try and get him out. But he decides to kind of go deeper in, and so she goes in to fully go on and try to save him. She's successful, gets him out of the bullet farm, and they start making their way out, but Dementis is on their tail. Dementis, she ends up getting her arm hurt in the attack, and they get flipped, and both of them are like very groggy and in pain and sort of dying, but not really. But Dementis decides to kind of torture them. He hangs Furiosa up by her injured arm. Then he ties the road warrior guy to the back of a bike and has the bike go round in circles while dogs chase and attack. It's implied, but not fully shown, that he is dead. She escapes by cutting off her arm, stealing a bike, and leaving somehow. And she gets chased down, but she's able to escape. Though on her way to the Citadel, a little bit too far out, she, blood loss and whatnot, is kind of dying. Mad Max makes a very small cameo, notices her, and takes her back to the Citadel, where she is put into a maggot farm. She wakes up, crawls out, is able to get the attention of some of the people, and get hauled back up into the main part of the Citadel, where she warns them of Dementis' plan. His plan currently is to try and get them to head to Gastown, but is actually coming from the bullet farm, and plans on, the idea is they abandon the Citadel to attack and try to retake Gastown, and so then they can go and take the Citadel, is essentially the plan. But knowing that it's a trap, they send only a very small party that use hooks and whatnot to drag up more sand to make it look like it's a bigger party heading towards Gastown. Dementis takes the bait and moves in to attack the Citadel. But the other parties that were lying in wait are able to move in, and then supposedly, the movie kind of hand waves it, a 40-day war happened, at which we then kind of rejoin at the end when Furiosa has built herself a new arm and is ready to head out and seek revenge. She heads out, steals a car, and chases down Dementis. Chases him through a sandstorm, finds him, takes his water and his ammunition and whatnot, and starts kind of toying with him. And the implication of what happens, because it's at this point that she reveals to him that, well, initially he thinks, it's just the woman that I killed, her boyfriend or whatever. But then, after some toying with him, she takes the teddy bear, and he realizes, it's you. Little D, as he called her. And he's like, this means that you were perfect. I was right to choose you, because you will almost certainly come to become like me, and you'll not be able, no pain will be able to get you to feel anymore. But yeah, so she pretty much, tries to say, no, I'll never be like you, stereotypical movie stuff. And then the narration kicks in and says that they spent the rest of the day in silence. It was presumed that she just, at some point, walked up, shot him. But then there's also a rumor that she had tied him to the back of a car and dragged him through the desert, befitting of the death of her boyfriend, question mark, or that she tied him to a tree with a fire under him, similar to her mother. But according to the storyteller who's narrating the end of the film, she whispered to him what really happened, that there is now a tree in the citadel, that its soil is made of flesh, living flesh, which is Dementus. So pretty much she chained Dementus to the ground and planted the tree, the pit, the peach pit in him, and a tree grew out of him. And so there's that. Then the movie shows her taking a peach to the wives of Immortan Joe, starts showing her like absconding away with them, and then as the credits roll, it shows clips from Fury Road and what's going on in Fury Road. Now, I haven't seen Fury Road, so I still have yet to know exactly what happens next, but I'll find out eventually. I look forward to it. But yeah, that's the overall plot of the film. I really enjoyed it. There's some dark moments, but a lot of kind of fun, lighthearted bits too. Some good, jokey things. I absolutely loved Chris Hemsworth being able to play a villain, like a kind of semi-lighthearted, but still absolute bastard of a guy villain. He had a lot of fun doing it, it looked like. The prosthetic nose that he was using looks kind of terrible in the first half of the film, but when he becomes Dark Dementus, it kind of blends in a bit better. Because, like, the first half of the film, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that looks like a very fake nose. But as the movie goes on and he becomes older, it kind of blends in a little bit better. It's like they did slightly better older man makeup on him, and so the nose fits just a bit better. But yeah, he goes through a weird like transformation. So he goes from Dementus to Red Dementus after they use a Warboy's like sky blood or whatever they call it, and it kind of ends up dyeing his hair and his beard and his cloak red. So he goes by Red Dementus for a bit. Then after he obtains Gastown, he goes by the Great Dementus, I think, or Dementus the Great. And then as Gastown is starting to go into a bit of like rebellion and whatnot, and there's some issues that they're running into, and he also is trying to go into trying to take over the whole Citadel operation and whatnot, he starts going by Dark Dementus. As his hair kind of darkened and grayed out, and the cloak, no longer super red, starts to turn black. So he goes by Dark Dementus. It's very silly. The special effects are really cool in this film. Like, overall, I just really enjoyed the action sequences. They're very fun and creative. Like the motorcycle chases where a guy has a flying motorcycle, and like they have like these fans on their back, and they're just like flying around in the sky. Very cool, very fun, very creative sequences, and I think that it's worth it for that alone. Honestly, it's a pretty good story, but yeah. Now there's some questions that are left hanging in the air. What happened to the green place? Now some of this might be explained in Fury Road. Like my best guess, my idea of what the plan from here on is that her plan is to take and free the wives of Immortan Joe and take them to the green place. That I believe is supposed to be the idea. I'm not entirely certain, but I think that's the plan that she has. I won't know until I eventually make my way up to Fury Road. But yes, the special effects are really cool. There's quite a few creative sequences, very like beautifully shot scenes, and I like the coloring of the film. I like how it's very bright and vibrant. Because when you think Mad Max, a lot of the time, you think kind of dull grays. Like you look at the poster for Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. And especially on like Max, it's just gray. So you start thinking of the wasteland as like this kind of gray place. But ever since Fury Road, like they kind of amped up the color a bit. And you're like, oh wow, you can make a very colorful wasteland. And then you look at this movie and it's like super bright colorful. There's lots of color explosions in the sky and whatnot. And you can even compare a little bit to the following film, Fury Road, where even that film has like darker, more muted colors to it in comparison to this film. And yeah, so you can kind of see that they're starting to go a bit brighter and more bombastic with the film, while still keeping things quite weird and gross. For example, there's a guy that he's very overweight, and he's wearing like a suit, and there's cutouts around his nipples, and he has like nipple piercings, and he spends pretty much every second that he's on screen just fiddling his titty. He's just tweaking his nipple and squeezing his tit. It's very awkward. He also has a gas mask like over his crotch. Very weird. But yeah, like the character designs are very cool, very interesting. It's cool to see this version of the wasteland in like a different form. I've seen clips of Fury Road, but I still have yet to actually watch Fury Road. But this makes me very excited to watch Fury Road. But I will go back, watch Mad Max 2, then 3, then Fury Road beforehand. But yeah, with that said, I believe that is everything I have to say about Furiosa. I'm curious to see if they decide to do anything else with the Anya Taylor-Joy version of Furiosa. It's kind of doubtful, but we'll see. We'll see if they end up doing anything else. I know that they do plan on doing at least another Mad Max film. When it's set and who plays Mad Max is, of course, up in the air. But we shall have to wait and see. But with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys are listening to us watching on YouTube, feel free to give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Otherwise, if you are listening on any podcast catcher of your choice, feel free to rate, review, and share it with your friends. Also, feel free to check out the challenge happening over on RPG Hangout, where I am beginning at this point, where I am in my penalty month, working on platinuming a few games as punishment for spending money on new games. And a VR headset. Yay! But yes, with that said, once again, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.